I'm sitting outside the Allison Auditorium here at the Heritage Foundation, where Senator Ted Cruz of Texas just gave a speech entitled "The People versus the Washington Cartel." Senator Cruz, who's the Washington Cartel?
You know, the Washington Cartel is an alliance of career politicians in Washington in both parties and the lobbyists in this town. It's big money. And what happens, big government benefits big business. Small government benefits small businesses and hard-working men and women. And the Washington Cartel is the corruption, the bipartisan corruption, where government picks winners and losers and it favors giant corporations at the expense of taxpayers. And it's happening over and over and over.
Now, you made the point here, though, that politicians always run against Washington.
They do.
Both sides. I'm there to stop the special interests. But you said it doesn't get serious until people start naming who the special interests are. Give us a couple examples.
The Export-Import Bank is the poster child for corporate welfare. It is the American taxpayers guaranteeing loans, hundreds of billions of dollars of loans, to foreign corporations and to giant U.S. corporations. Roughly half of the benefits of the Export-Import Bank go to just 10 giant corporations. And the way it works right now is if the deals make money, big business gets rich. They get all the profits. And if the deals go belly up, the taxpayers are on the hook. And it is one of the many examples of Washington not standing up for working men and women, not standing up for the taxpayers. And yet the problem is you got politicians in both parties who love the Export-Import Bank.
But why? Yeah, why?
Because there are a ton of lobbyists who write them a ton of checks to do it. It's where the money is. You know, it's the old line, why do you rob banks? It's where the money is. Anytime someone tells you it's not about the money, it's about the money.
Now, the Export-Import Bank has also raised, it could expire at the end of this month,
June 30th.
But there's been talk as of late that it's going to be getting mixed up in this whole trade deal that's been going on. Do you think that's going to happen? Mitch McConnell, others have said no. You think that's really part of it?
It certainly appears to be. Indeed, that was one of the big reasons why this week I voted against TPA. I'm a big supporter of free trade. I campaigned in support of free trade. I think when we open up foreign markets, it benefits American farmers and ranchers and manufacturers. Unfortunately, this trade deal has gotten far afield from trade, and part of what it appears leadership has cut a deal is they've cut a deal to reauthorize the Export-Import Bank as an effort to buy votes to get TPA through.
Now, when did you, because I mean, literally just what, a month ago, you co-authored an op-ed with Paul Ryan in the House in the Wall Street Journal that said this is a good deal, it's good for Americans. But then just this week you authored your own op-ed saying, change my mind.
Two things have changed. Number one, since that first vote in May, WikiLeaks has released the text of a portion of one of the trade agreements that's being negotiated. It's a secret document, but it explicitly purports to change the immigration laws of member nations. Now, when TPA was up the first time, I introduced an amendment and Jeff Sessions introduced an amendment. Both of our amendments would have made absolutely clear that no trade deal can ever change immigration law, and indeed that anything that tried to wouldn't be subject to fast track. Both of our amendments got blocked. And the second reason is the XM Bank. I asked Mitch McConnell, I said, tell me what deal was cut. Was there a deal cut on the XM Bank? And Mitch McConnell stood up and told me and every other Republican senator, he said, no, there was no deal. I made no promises at all. I said they could introduce any amendment they wanted on any bill they wanted, just like any other senator.
And you believed him at the time.
He is the elected leader of our party in the Senate, and he made a straight-out commitment to me and every other Republican. And so on the basis of that representation, I voted yes, because if it's just about free trade, I'm for it.
Well, and you wrote this specifically in your op-ed yesterday, and it touches on this whole GOP leadership in the House making members pay who don't vote the way they want. You said, why does Republican leadership always give in to the Democrats? Why does leadership always disregard the promises made to the conservative grassroots? And then I would add, why are they punishing people like Mark Meadows and others who have basically said, I'm representing my constituents?
Genevieve, it's real simple. They're not listening to the American people. They're not listening to their constituents. They're listening to K Street and the lobbyists. It's all about money. The other examples I used, in addition to the XM Bank, were energy mandates. Whether it is biofuels and ethanol, whether it is wind, whether it is oil and gas, whether it is solar or nuclear or coal, every one of them has energy mandates and benefits in the tax code. Or sugar subsidies, and you look at the sugar subsidies that have cost jobs across this country, drive up, Americans pay $1.8 billion a year extra to subsidize American sugar makers. You know, sugar comprises 0.2% of the farms in this country. 40% of the agricultural lobbying comes from the sugar industry. And so you see a large bipartisan majority of Republicans and senators say, we're with Big Sugar. Why? Because they got all the checks. And all the people getting hurt, they don't have the checks.
You might say it's a sweet deal, shall we say, for them. I want to ask you one final question. Supreme Court is going to make a ruling on Obamacare later this week, and they're going to decide whether or not people who got subsidies through the federal exchange whether that's constitutional.
Right.
If the court rules that it is not, and those folks lose their subsidies, what should Republicans in Congress do?
What should we do? What we shouldn't do is step in, save Obamacare, and have a bunch of Republicans just pass the subsidies and extend it. There are going to be a lot of people in Congress who want to do that. You know why? One of the reasons why all the insurance companies are lobbying for that. That's where the money is. So the lobbyists are all saying you got to keep the subsidies, because without the subsidies, the big companies lose money.
But what if you don't fund the subsidies? What about all those people? It's not their fault, right?
So what we should do is we should do a complete opt-out. And my office has drafted legislation that allows states to opt out of everything. Opt out of the subsidies, but opt out of the mandates, opt out of the taxes, opt out of all the taxes, not just the individual mandate taxes, but the medical device taxes, but the investment in taxes, all of the burdens and the mandates that are driving up the cost of insurance. See, what's happening on Obamacare, part of the reason people are trapped where they need subsidies is Obamacare has driven up the cost of insurance where it's unaffordable. Have you noticed, by the way, Genevieve, that since Obamacare passed, the insurance companies have been raking in money hand over foot? The insurance companies were sitting at the table drafting Obamacare. It's another example of the Washington cartel of picking winners and losers, where politicians said, I'll tell you what, we will fine Americans if they don't buy your product. Now, what giant company wouldn't like that if the federal government says, we'll send the IRS after any American who doesn't choose to buy your product? That's the corruption of this town. We need to be about empowering people to achieve the American dream. We need to weaken Washington and take power back to we the people.
Senator, thank you
Thank you,
very
Genevieve.
much.